are? Stop it. Barb's not a Suliban.
Oh, but how do you know?
She is nothing but a great human lady. You need to stop spinning out and accept people for who they are. Now be quiet. I gotta change everything about me to trick her into thinking I'm something I'm not. Computer, analyze the coolest people in Earth history and replicate me in outfit. Boy's size small.
Cupid's errant arrow. You know, the titles of these episodes of Lower Decks, I think, are some of the best titles in Star Trek.
I would have to agree. I'm kind of a sucker for those really long titles they had in the original series in Deep Space Nine and a little bit in Discovery as well. But I'm liking the kind of irreverent titles a little bit. Like Moist Vessel last week is fun. And then, this week, Cupid's Errant Arrow is it's fun to say.
Yeah, I do like the longer titles. I think they sound more creative. That's the one thing about TNG and some DS9 and Voyager and even Enterprise. Like just these one-word titles. Like I just thought it was just boring. Occasionally do that, but not like almost all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just a little, or maybe 2 words they do it occasionally. But I like the longer titles. But anyway, this is Positively Trek. We're going to be positive about Star Trek here. And I'm Bruce Gibson, one of your hosts. And with me, as he is through every Lower Decks, is Dan Gunther. How you doing, Dan?
Not too bad. Excited to be here in the Lower Decks, sleeping in the hallways and, doing all the stuff that the ensigns on the Cerritos do. So
Excellent. So I just want to point out something to everyone, because we were talking about this before the show. You do your YouTube review of Lower Decks, and then you've been doing live shows on YouTube with Brandy Jackala, which, I've done some live shows with you guys, but I haven't been doing any of the Lower Decks ones. And the reason is because when we record this, which is after those things, I don't want to know what you think. So I'm going into this having no idea what you think of this episode, and you don't know what I think about this episode. That's how we go into these Lower Deck reviews.
Yeah, generally speaking, most weeks I have no idea how you feel about this episode and vice versa, like you say, yeah.
Well, I planned for you to never find out what I think of this episode. We're just going to sit here and just stare at each other, and that will be the show.
All right. Well, then. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, where can they find you on Twitter?
Well, you can... No.
All right, well, let's get into this. Cupid's Errant Arrow. That's the episode. It's the 5th episode in the first season of Lower Decks. This was unique. It was the first one we didn't have a cold opening.
Yeah, that's true. So it went straight into the opening title sequence with no cold open. I was noticing, I think the length of this one was 25 minutes as opposed to the last few, which were 24. So I'm just wondering if maybe this one went a little bit long and they kind of made the decision to cut it down a little bit or something. That's my best guess.
Oh, wait. That's a good point. What if there is a cold opening that got cut and it's on the cutting room floor somewhere, and it'll be like a lost scene that we'll see later?
It could be, yeah. Or if it's one of those cold opens that is not tied to what's going on in the episode at all. Maybe they just we'll use it in this episode instead. Or this one went a little short, so we'll have 2 jokes or something.
I have to say I was a little disappointed, because as soon as I hit play and the theme song started coming on, I'm like, whoa, wait, where's the cold opening? I'm kind of used to that.
Yeah, I always get a little paranoid. So, I rewind and check, just double check that it didn't skip ahead or something. But yeah.
So there's several things going on in this episode. I've been noticing how we see a Mariner Boimler storyline, and then there's usually a Tendi Rutherford storyline. It just... it always not last week's as much, but the others always seems like that those are the 2 groups. I'd like to see more of them together.
Yeah, that's one thing. Actually, the last 2 episodes have broken that mold. We're kind of getting back to that after having been away from doing that for a while. But you're right. That's one thing we've not seen is the 4 of them all together, other than, some brief scenes. Like their 2 stories cross paths at one point in this episode in the mess hall. You just kind of see them run by. But other than that, we don't get these characters all together. I think that would be interesting to see them all play off each other in some sort of combined story. That's definitely something we haven't seen yet. I think that'd be cool.
I'd like to see more of an adventure that involves all 4 of them all together, not separating them out, So Mixtus 3 is the planet they go to, and there's an unstable moon there. And so they are going there to do a controlled demolition of it, and they meet up with the U.S.S. Vancouver, and it's a Parliament-class ship. Yeah, and they focus on large-scale engineering projects. I thought it was a nice-looking ship.
Yeah, I agree. Really impressive. Of course, Tendi and Rutherford are very impressed with the Vancouver. And I got to say, I got to put it in here. I'm loving the Canadian content because we have the U.S.S. Vancouver, which is named after Vancouver, British Columbia. And the reason I know that it's named after that and not the Vancouver in Washington State is the shuttlecraft are all named after, I believe, neighborhoods in the Vancouver area. So there's the Kitsilano, the Fairview, the ones that I noticed anyway. And also, I don't know if you caught this. I've seen a few people talking about this online. There's in the mess hall scene, I think it's the character of Jet, the big hunk guy from the Cerritos. The meal that he's eating is a plate of poutine. So there's some more Canadian content.
I did not notice that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, I could give some poutine right now. That sounds so good. But no, I didn't pick up on that. That's really cool. So it's basically the American ship visiting the Canadian ship.
I like it. And the Canadian ship is bigger and more impressive.
And runs better. What is that trying to say?
Well, to be fair, the Americans also have like the Enterprise out there somewhere. So,
I guess so. But the Enterprise isn't named after a U.S. city. So
No.
But I think there is a city or a town somewhere called Enterprise. I'm trying to remember where. Is it Alabama? There might be a few of them. Anyway, I know I've seen one. And anybody who lives in a town called Enterprise, let us know. It might be interesting. So it starts off with a tour of the ship. Our captain's taking a tour. And they find this alien race in the conference room. And they're saying that, they don't care about blowing up the moon, and if some of them worship it. They have all different ways of looking at this moon. It's so important to them. And there's something I thought that was funny about it, especially at the end where they said, "Oh, it's the government, they made it all up to control us."
That line was a little too real. I gotta say, it was like, oh man, because that would happen. We now know that would happen. There would be people, moons can't plummet. That's all just a government conspiracy. That's not a real thing. Worldwide pandemics, those aren't real. That's just a government conspiracy to, I don't know, track you or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of jump ahead, though, because one thing I really love about this in a later scene is that they're all still arguing. And Captain Freeman's in there saying, "You do this and you do that," blah, 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 as if, she's going to tell them what to do. And you expect them all to go, "No, no, no." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And they all leave the room.
Yeah, that's reasonable. We'll allocate a few 100 tons of moon dust for you to get you guys to worship. We'll install some gravity systems for the farmers. It'll all be fine.
I don't even think Picard did that well in any negotiation.
Yeah. What's funny, and this came up a little bit last night as well in the live show, but I was thinking that, we have the captain of the Vancouver who's all high and mighty and like, "Oh, maybe one day you'll be in command of one of these great ships." And like, ugh. But it's really Captain Freeman that steps up, and the captain of Vancouver just kind of disappears. Freeman negotiates all of this and gets it all settled by the end. Like, she should be commanding a ship like this. She's that good.
Yeah. And we never did get a name for that captain, did we?
I don't think so, no. Not that I recall.
Well, it's a Canadian ship. I'm going to call the Captain Gunther for now.
Okay. I'll take it.
That's in my head canon.
Ineffective, not really useful. Yeah, okay.
Oh, wait, no, I don't want to go there.
I'm just kidding.
So I'll call the Captain Gibson then.
No.
Okay, so then we find Boimler. He's got a girlfriend. Ooh, has a girlfriend. Had a girlfriend. He met her like a month ago. Ooh, got a girlfriend. And I'm just thinking, like, I don't know what your first impression was, but I was just almost like Mariner. I was like, Boimler has a girlfriend?
Yeah, it's funny. Online, I have seen some people saying that this episode is a little mean-spirited towards Boimler on the part of Mariner. I have kind of a different opinion. I don't think it's being mean-spirited. I think it actually, by the end, we see how much Mariner actually really cares for Boimler. But there is a lot of kind of ribbing of Boimler that like, oh, he can't have a girlfriend this hot who's a lieutenant. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It must be a changeling infiltrator or an android or something like that. I can see how that would come across as a little mean, but, I think honestly, when it comes down to it, it comes from a genuine place of Mariner worrying that Boimler's going to be taken advantage of and that, he's going to get hurt by this. So I don't know. I was a little more forgiving, I think, than some people were.
Yeah, I haven't even read anything online, so I don't know what people think. And my initial impression of Boimler has a girlfriend isn't that I don't think Boimler could have a girlfriend. Not at all. I mean, everybody can have a significant other. It's just that everything he tries to do seems to always backfire. So that was more of my reaction, like, wow, he was able to actually manage to get a girlfriend, because I would think every time he would try to do something like that, it would just backfire on him. So, which kind of has happened in this episode too, know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, Barbara Benson.
Yeah.
She's a lieutenant. Ugh, she's a lieutenant. She outranks them.
And a wonderful guest star for Lower Decks as well. So Gillian Jacobs, who, of course, a lot of people would probably know as Britta from the television series Community. She's done a lot of other things. That's just where I know her personally from. And yeah, I thought she was wonderful in this. What a really cool guest star for the show.
No, I did too. Like, when I was watching, I was like, that voice sounds familiar, and I'm really liking who's doing this. And yeah, I had a feeling it was going to be somebody I might know, not personally, but know of.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like this character. I hope we get to see her come back again. I mean, we're kind of jumping all over this episode. We can go through the whole episode scene by scene, but I kind of like to jump around, because a lot of times when we talk about a scene, it makes me think about something that happens later. And I kind of just want to focus on the Barbara Benson character, because even though Mariner thinks she's out of his league and she would never be interested in it, to your point in what you're reading online, it's like, well, really? Come on. I mean, just because you think that she wouldn't like Boimler doesn't mean she wouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
you know? I mean, I've had girls out of my league like me, kind of, no, not, never. Okay. Forget that then.
Aw.
Oh, wait, there was that one. Oh, wait, that was a joke. No, she didn't really. Not.
Aw.
Anyway, no. No, I did meet a girl that was out of my league, and I married her.
Oh, very nice save. Nice save. Good show. Me too. Me too, by the way. Me too.
We have a lot in common, don't we?
We so do.
I even have a co-host that's out of my league. It's just incredible.
Me too.
Oh my gosh, I want to meet this person. I feel like I'm in a Lower Decks episode right now. But I have to say, the one part that kind of grossed me out was all the kissing that Brad and Barbara were doing.
Yeah, the little kissy faces too. Like, not even just the kissing, but when Brad's kind of, Bradward, I should say, is doing his little kissy face, ooh, I'm just like, ugh. It gets a little bit much, but I mean, that's what it's meant to be, right? Like, ugh.
Or boing boing, my
Boing,
little
boing.
boing boing. And what about I'm going to call it, again, I haven't been reading online, but I've seen people are calling it the Geordie bear.
I have seen it referred to as that somewhere, but yeah, the little Geordie teddy bear with the visor on. It's so cute.
Have to have that. Have to have that.
Yeah, someone's going to do that.
Or there's already out
sure.
there. Maybe someone's already done it. Maybe this was a call to that.
That could be. I could see that being a thing for sure.
We see a lot of visors in this series on crewmen and now teddy bears.
Yep. Visually impaired teddy bears.
Yeah. At a time where Geordie's no longer using a visor. So then we have Jet. Jet. I may change my handle to Admiral_Jet.
He's the second coolest crew member on the Cerritos.
Yes. He used to work together with Barbara, or as he calls her, Barbosaurus Rex. Maybe I should change my handle from Admiral_Rex to Barbosaurus_Rex.
There you go, yeah.
I'm not going to lie. When he called her Barbosaurus Rex, I thought, oh my gosh, I hope in a later season she gets promoted to Admiral, and then I'll just say my handle was named after her.
Well, it's funny, after she's called that, one of the things that Mariner thinks she might be is this reptiloid thing with a barb on her tail. So I was like, ooh, is this a little bit of foreshadowing, that Barbosaurus Rex thing? But no, that does not seem to be the case.
But Barb is a little too great. Mariner just thinks she's just a little too perfect. And so because of that, yeah, why would she be interested in Boimler? He's a mess. Let's go to Tendi and Rutherford. So they love the smell of ships. They go around smelling ships. And they met with Ron Descent, who is the person they're reporting to on the Vancouver. And they're given an assignment to find alternatives to implosions. And, they're really excited about these T-88s. That's like the big candy in this episode.
Yeah. And if you'll notice, the T-88s all have a purple stripe on them, just like those fancy new tricorders, right? So, that's the good stuff in Starfleet, when you have the equipment with the purple stripe.
Now, he tells them, the first one who gets all their work done gets to keep their T-88, and they get all excited.
Mm-hmm.
And then later in the episode here, so I'm jumping a little later in the episode, he's like, great, well, you both got done at the same time, so it's a tie, so you both get to stay on the ship with your T-88s. And they're just like, wait, what? Wait, I thought we could take our T-88s over to the other ship. No, I was saying you get a T-88 to use here, which I don't think he said that.
Nope. That was he dropped that on them. His whole scheme is basically he wants them to transfer to the Vancouver, and he wants to transfer to the Cerritos. And we also learn, of course, that his full name is Lieutenant Commander Ron Emanuel Docent. So he's very haughty and this kind of thing. But his whole thing, and I thought this was kind of interesting, was that he doesn't want to be epic anymore, because on the Vancouver, they're always doing things like towing a starbase or powering a Dyson sphere or going back in time and killing the guy who's worse than Hitler. They're doing all the like crazy big Enterprise type missions. And he's like, I just want to be on a quiet ship where, nothing really big happens all the time and that sort of thing. I thought that was kind of a little bit of funny commentary. Overall, though, I have to say this subplot, I wasn't as connected to it as I was to the other two plots in the episode. I love seeing Rutherford and Tendi together. I think they're a lot of fun. I really like how they play off each other. But this storyline, I was kind of like, I don't know. I wasn't really connecting to it that much.
Yeah, same here. There wasn't a whole lot there. I mean, they like working on the ship, and they're just oohing and awing about working and being on the ship, and the oohing and awing about T-88s. And then we get to this end, and they're like, okay, we don't want to serve on the Vancouver, we'll just have to tell him that we decline. And they're afraid, well, what if he gets pissed? But professionals don't get pissed. And of course he does, which is funny, because I remember thinking when they said that, I was like, he'll probably be very supportive, because remember in that previous episode where Rutherford was changing departments, and they're like, yeah, go for it, yeah, you should go. I thought this guy would be the same way, but it was the opposite of that, because like you said, he wanted to be on the Cerritos himself.
Yeah, and I like how they set up that joke over the last few episodes, basically, because all the other people are like, what are you saying? Oh, I'm totally supportive. Or, you're gonna what? Well, you gotta follow your dreams, blah, blah, blah. And then in this case, it's like, what? But he's actually mad. He stays mad. And you're like, oh, crap. I was expecting that reversal.
Going back, let's rewind a little to the Mariner and Boimler and the Barbara perfect girlfriend storyline. So Mariner's still convinced she's got to be something like a secret alien, or she starts mouthing all these different things. But what my favorite thing was that she said was that she's probably one of those sexy people in rompers that murders you just for going on their grass.
Yes. Great. That was one of my favorite references in an episode that is just chock full of references. This one has so many references. basically to every single series that, pre-Discovery series has a reference in this episode. You can pick out original TNG, DS9, Voyager, they're all, and Enterprise, they're all there. So I did love that one, to a first season TNG episode. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and that episode is called Justice. And, that one really stood out to me because a couple of years ago, I was on an episode of the Ready Room podcast, and I don't know how it got chosen. I have a feeling I had something to do with it. But anyway, I had to watch it a couple of times. And you know what? To watch that episode and then watch it immediately again 2 times in a row is a bit much. So every time I think of Justice, I think of that recording and watching it twice before I went on the show.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there are good moments in it, but overall that would be a tough one to watch a couple times in a row for sure.
No, but Dan, didn't you cosplay as that once? Didn't you wear a romper?
I very much did not. Nobody wants to see that. But no, yeah. I mean, I would be highly impressed to see like people committing to that cosplay at a convention. I think that would be really impressive.
Yeah, it's almost like the Star Trek version of toga parties. They can have a romper party.
You need a lot of 2-sided tape to keep those costumes where they're supposed to be, I think.
And then we have a flashback for Mariner. Okay, you had to geek out over this because there's Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. So I have a new desktop background on my computer at the moment, and it's the U.S.S. Keto docked at Deep Space Nine. So yeah, we see Deep Space Nine, which is really cool, but we also see the Keto, which is an Olympic class starship like the U.S.S. Pasteur from All Good Things, which marks the first time in this series we've seen, other than the Klingon Bird of Prey, you could argue, Federation ship, certainly, the first time we've seen a classic design that was originally a model or whatever in one of the previous shows shown as in this animated environment. So I think that's a big deal as well. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. I was very happy to see that, as a matter of fact.
And nothing here, by the way, I'm just going to point out, looks 25% different to me.
Good point. Including the uniforms, because we saw the movie era, I guess. What are those uniforms called? Because I know they wore them on Deep Space Nine, but TNG movie era?
I tend to call them the First Contact uniforms because that's where they first showed up. But, in my video review of this episode, I kind of have a moment of shock when I remember that First Contact came out in 1996. And I still kind of think of those uniforms as like the new TNG uniforms. I'm like, wait, that was 24 years ago. Oh my God.
They're not new anymore.
No, definitely not.
No, but I know what you're saying because it is the more recent uniforms that we've seen, of the TNG era. So I kind of think of them as the new uniforms too, myself. Even though we've had now Picard, where we've seen newer uniforms, and now Lower Decks, I still think of those as the newer uniforms.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also especially when we've been reading the post-Nemesis novels, they're still in those uniforms. So, and then, I like that they bring up Data's brother and the Borg. That was
nice
cool.
little reference there to Descent parts 1 and 2. Data's brother, can you believe that he teamed up with the Borg? No way. It's like a new adventure every week with those guys.
Yeah. And then I like Mariner's hair was different, much bigger, much more shape to it. It was like a different era, It made me start to wonder, how old is Mariner and how long has she been serving in Starfleet?
Yeah, it's a good question because, we've seen a few times now that she has a lot more experiences than we realize. She's been promoted and demoted, not just in the last episode, but before in previous years of service. So yeah, I'm curious how long she's been in Starfleet. I've seen people speculating online. I don't think we have enough information yet. Based on the uniforms and her being at Deep Space Nine, that could even just have been last year because, the this series takes place in 2380. Those uniforms were in service in 2379 when Nemesis takes place. So that doesn't tell us a lot. So
yeah, definitely. It could be just a year earlier. It could be 5 years earlier. Yeah, we really don't have an idea of when. I would think, though, because her hair looks different like that, is to imply that it's been some time, more than maybe a year. But I don't know. But I do like then that she's there with that other couple and they're talking and that guy is so perfect, and he turns out to be a shape changer and starts attacking, and that's why she's so paranoid about Boimler, because here's this girl and she's perfect, and this same thing could happen here, like what happened on DS9. And so that has some motivation behind what she's doing.
Yeah. And again, I think it really comes from a place of caring for Boimler and worried that he's going to be taken advantage of. Because, it does come across as a little condescending, but I think her heart's in the right place. And I think that's where the warmth of these characters ultimately comes from.
And then, of course, Boimler's starting to freak out and starting to worry about his girlfriend over there with Jet. And he goes in that room where it's like a stellar cartography type situation or whatever, and it's bumbling through. I didn't really care for that scene that much. Usually when I'm taking little notes, I just made one little comment just to remind me of that scene, but there was nothing that did anything for me.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff with Boimler is a little bit cringy, I think. I'm not, I'm feeling bad for the guy, but he's so self-sabotaging that, he doesn't come across well in a lot of those scenes.
And then when they go into their version of Tenford, or the bar, or whatever we're going to call it, he's in his new really cool outfit, or what he thinks is cool that he gets made for him in a boy's small size, or size small, or whatever. And he's trying to impress. And I love how Barbara Benson is very much like, what are you doing? You're ruining everything. You're annoying. And she doesn't understand how somebody so sexy like him, that really came in and really kind of turned her on at first, can be doing all these things. And you're like, she still sees so much into him as a sex symbol, even when he's messing things up.
Yeah, and I love that that outfit does it for her. She's like, you walked in here all sexy as hell and then you ruined it. And Mariner's like, sexy as hell? Well, now I know there's something wrong here.
Exactly, yeah. And then, of course, she knows something is wrong, so she goes to get some of Barbara Benson's hair, a clip of it, and she clips some hair, and she goes, and Barbara's like, hey, did you just pull my hair? Did you just, and she turns to some officer walk, but did you just pull her hair? Yes, he pulled your hair. Oh, trying to get out of it, So it's funny seeing her even trying to struggle and trying to get her ways, trying to figure out, is Barbara really an alien or some kind of parasite in her, whatever.
Yeah, and she's getting a little frazzled too. She's got the dark circles under her eyes. She's really freaking out over all this. Yep.
And of course, Boimler's freaking out outside the shuttlecraft when he hears Barbara and Jet in there, and he thinks that they're having sex, and she's like, is this what this is all about? You think I've been cheating on you? And Mariner's goes and pulls her pants out. Watch out for the tail, expecting her to be a reptoid. And it's starting to get crazy at this point. And she finds the exoskeleton husk, which makes her think, oh, that's it. Barb is a parasite. But now she's got to go and find them and walk in on Boimler, who is naked, which we've seen that in previews and trailers for this series.
I do love the little censored bar. I think that's a really funny moment for sure.
Then we find out that Barbara thinks that Mariner may have a parasite and vice versa, and they start fighting it out as Boimler is passed out on the ground.
Yeah. So this is kind of the moment where I'm thinking, because some people have been wondering, was Mariner under the influence of the parasite that Boimler has as well? Is that why she cares so much about him? And I don't think so. I think mostly she's just looking out for him as a friend. But in this scene, this is the one scene where I'm like, maybe Mariner's a little under the influence of this thing as well, because she's fighting so hard for Boimler, and this kind of knockdown, drag out fight between the two of them does make me think that maybe they're both being affected by what we learn, of course, the pheromones given off by this parasite that's actually attached itself to Boimler, making him irresistible to potential mates, I think they say.
I would say, though, I disagree with you, which doesn't happen all that often. I don't think the parasite had any effect on Mariner. I think just for her history of what happened on DS9 and to her friend was her motivation for kind of going overboard with trying to help Boimler. But I perceived the parasite sending its pheromones, like it elects one person as the potential mate, is how I read that scene.
Yeah, and no, like I said, I don't think it was a big influence on Mariner at all. I think it's her genuine friendship with Boimler, like I said, that is what's fueling things. But that's also a really good point that, you know, her trauma after having gone through that on Deep Space Nine definitely, I think, is a part of that as well, for sure.
Okay, so you don't think it had any effect on her then?
No, I was just saying that, like, if there is any evidence of that, I think this scene comes closest to saying, well, maybe there's something there. But I think it's not that. I think it's her genuine care for Boimler and not wanting to see him get hurt.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I like the little parasite just constantly going, lover, 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 lover.
It was me. It was all me. And then, of course, how obsessed with the parasite Barb is at the end. Like, it's still working on her. She's like, ooh, I can't wait to study this little parasite. She's just like looking at it with gaga eyes.
Yeah, but then she breaks up with Boimler.
Oh, poor Boimler.
So she really wasn't interested in him. It really was the parasite that made that happen. Poor Boimler. Oh, wow. One thing that, well, you know, he does pee in sinks. We did learn that, too.
Yep. And he shakes the egg sac of a particular alien.
It's kind of gross. You know, there's an earlier scene with Mariner, which I like to call her wall of weird. Because if anybody watched Smallville, Chloe had her wall of weird of things going on in town. And, of course, Mariner has something like that. And she mentions, like, even wondering if Barb's a Suliban.
Yeah, there's so many great references if you pause on that board. But yeah, Suliban, there's at least two Enterprise references in this episode, which I think is really cool. I love seeing that show get a little bit of love.
So I saved this wall of weird towards the end because I have a feeling that you might have a little more to tell us about that wall, but I don't know. I know I'm catching you off guard on this, but I think we kind of studied it before from the trailer.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, we've got there's some Bionars on there. There's the whales from Star Trek 4.
Is the salt creature? Do I remember that
the salt
correctly?
creature is on there. They mention a Cardassian, surgically altered Cardassian spy, and they point to a picture of a Cardassian woman, which, you know, doesn't really look like Seska, but I'm pretty sure they're referencing Seska. That to me ticks off the Voyager reference in the episode. So if people were wondering when I said they reference every single series, you know, prior to Discovery, that's the closest to a Voyager one that I could find.
Awesome. Yeah, I really haven't had a lot of time to look at that. I do remember when the trailer came out looking at some of that, but, you know, towards the end of the episode here, going back to Tendi and to Rutherford, I like how they're convincing Ron Docent to allow them to go to back to the Cerritos, and they blackmail him because he's being recorded from Rutherford's implants, and that he's got all recorded, so you can just give us each a T-88 to take with us. But then we end up seeing them with bags full of T-88s that they stole.
Yeah, I do. That's the one part of that story that I really do appreciate, is the camaraderie between those two. Like, at the end when they reveal that they both stole duffel bags full of these things, and Tendi says, this right here, this is why we're friends. I'm like, they're so sweet together. I really like those two. You know, mutual theft. That's a great basis for a relationship.
Well, before we give our final thoughts and end this episode, there's another scene going back to Captain Freeman that I skipped over that I want to mention, and that's, again, her working with the aliens, and this one alien that she can't seem to satisfy, that, you know, we have to move the population, and he keeps murders, and we come to find out, wait, there's only 2 people on the planet.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, forget this. Implode the freaking moon at this point, you know?
And again, the social commentary, I think, is important to look at. It's a little not subtle, but I love that. Wait a minute. There's only 2 effing people on your whole effing planet? Well, yeah, but we're rich. Implode the moon.
Yeah.
I love it. That was such a great moment. Like, I think that's my new favorite Captain Freeman moment. And I know there's not a lot to choose from, but I think that's like, I actually really liked her there. I thought that was great.
I think this episode did more justice to Captain Freeman than we've had in other episodes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. She really actually comes across as not that great a captain in previous episodes. But in this one, I'm behind her 100%. I think she does a wonderful job in this episode.
Yeah, I would really like for them to play her to be a better captain than what they have, and this episode does that. If you're going to show any weakness in her command style, I'd rather it be as her command as a mother.
Yeah, definitely.
To Mariner, you know? And that's where she struggles. As if she's a good captain. She may not be the best captain, but she's a really good captain. But when it comes to her daughter, she's just struggling. Mm-hmm. She can command a whole ship, but not her daughter, which I kind of play a little bit on that. But I like to see her come across as a little bit of a better captain than what they've portrayed. But that being said, Dan, final thoughts.
All right, final thoughts for this episode. I do have a hard time with the term favorite because, you know, I don't like to rank things that way. However, I do think I have a new favorite episode. I loved this episode. From the character moments between our main characters and stuff all the way through to like all of the references. And I know, you know, that's kind of just icing on the cake. That's not the main point of an episode. I loved all the references, and I mean, I have to admit the little fan heart in me at seeing Deep Space Nine, that was so cool. But yeah, no, all around, I think this episode has a really great guest star. I think it has great performances and moments by our main characters, and you know, it was also fun to see kind of the wider Starfleet a little bit and get a little bit more building of the Federation at this time and what's going on. And even the C plot, I think, with the aliens and imploding the moon and the dealings with the captain was definitely a highlight as well. The B plot with Tendi and Rutherford, I think, was not as good as the rest of the episode, but it still highlights this really great relationship between those two characters. So, you know, I really appreciated that. For a sort of deeper meaning of the episode, I think it's a bit of a simplistic one, but I think it's a little bit of the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You know, that's kind of obvious with the Tendi and Rutherford story. You know, they are in love with the Vancouver and they even get handed the opportunity to go over to the Vancouver, but they realize, no, you know, I want to be on the Cerritos. I want to be with my friends. My friends aren't over there. And it may be cool to play with this new fascinating equipment and all that stuff, but, you know, I prefer to stay where my friends are and where things are good. And you know, you can even put that in with the Mariner and Boimler story, right? Where there's this new crazy relationship and, you know, it's maybe seems to be too good to be true. And well, it is too good to be true. You know, it's not all that it appears to be. You know, you're always striving for something that I don't want to say unattainable, but you're striving for something better than what you have. And sometimes you need to realize that what you have is worth it. So that's kind of what I got from this.
Perfectly said. Yes, absolutely. And I think even like you were saying, you know, Tendi and Rutherford, they're looking at the Vancouver as something perfect that they want. And then we find out from Ron that it's not perfect. He doesn't like to be there. So yeah, you may really want something and it may not be the right thing. Very good. Yeah, I really like the episode. I wouldn't say it was my favorite. You know, the further we get into this, it's going to be hard to rank. I don't like to rank things anyway, but I would say, I mean, I really liked it, but I also think I really am liking it because I'm getting more familiar with it and I have a certain expectation. So it's starting to feel even more comfortable to me. I used to kind of measure these episodes as to, well, how much am I laughing? and I'm looking at that less. I mean, there were little chuckles here and there, but I'm just entertained by it, and I'm enjoying the stories, and I'm enjoying what these characters are going through, and I'm less interested in, okay, well, let me see how funny this is going to be. Am I really going to laugh a lot? And I don't feel like I need to, because I'm just invested in the characters and the stories. And that's how I really felt about this episode, is I'm just invested. And all the things that you said, I agree. So yeah, it's definitely up there. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really enjoying this series. Yeah, maybe it's not my favorite Star Trek series, but doesn't mean I don't like it. I really do like it.
And now we're half done it.
We're half done. That's kind of depressing. Gosh, It flew by.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But now we're only 5 or 6 weeks away from Discovery, which is pretty cool too.
I'm so excited about that. Well, guess what? We're going to talk more about that in our next episode.
Ooh.
So everyone's got to tune in to episode 37 for that. So Dan, where can people find you online?
You can find me online on Twitter. I'm at Kertrats. That's KERTRATS. And on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Kertrats Productions.
And you can find me on Twitter at Admiral_Rex. And you can find me somewhere out there on Facebook. I'm Bruce Gibson. We have a Facebook group for Positively Trek. Look for that. Come in, join the conversations. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope you're around for our next episode. And stay positive.